YouTube, in this video we're going to explore slope as a rate of change, and often when we find the slope of a graph we're not looking at data sets in math classes, we're looking at arbitrary values of x and y and practicing how you calculate a slope value. But really when you're actually looking at data, I want to know, well, why is this considered to be a rate of change? Okay, so it says the line graphs for the number of women and men living alone are shown again in this figure over here, and we can see that women and men here across data values of time and then number living alone in millions here are listed thusly. So we say describe what the slope represents. Well, what I want to look at here is I'm giving the examples of women over time and what the slope of their graph would indicate. So finding the slope of their graph, notice that we actually have two set data values, this beginning data value and this end data value. And we could actually just find the rise over the run here, which is what we're calculating in this example over here. So we know that in terms of rise, we say our change in y here would be the difference between 18.3 million and 14 million. And of course, we would get but 4.3 million if we were to take 18.3 minus 14. And our change in x would be the change in years here. So we have 2008 minus 1990, which of course is 18 years. But what we end up with here is some 4.3 divided by 18, and what I want you to see is over here on the right, they've listed this as 0.24 million women per year. So in terms of what the units would be on this right here and what this represents, basically what this represents first of all is the average rate of change per year. On average, it's raising about 1/4 of a million or 250,000 women per year. But what we're seeing here is a change in millions over the change in time. So in terms of assessing what should the units be, we're just going to look at what were the units on the y-axis and what are the units on the x-axis, and then this slope number that we get here between those 2 years would represent that average rate of change, or the rate of change there. So what I want to do is very quickly before we tune out of this video is interpret what would be the slope of the men's graph and how we might interpret that. Okay, so we have two data values for our men here, and we can see that our x1, y1 would be 1990, okay, comma 9.0 million. And then over here we would have 2008, comma 14.7 million. So the slope of the men's graph here, slope of men's, would be our change in y values first, which would be 14.7 minus the 9.0. And then we would say our change in x values would be the change in time, or the change in years here, 2008 minus 1990. So this 14.7 minus the 9.0, what we get here is 5.7. And of course what I want you to understand is that this 5.7 is our change in y, or change in population living alone. So we would say that this is measured in millions of people, millions of men in this case. And then on the bottom here we have time. So it is often beneficial if you have a math teacher like myself and I say you need to label these things. So 5.7, we're actually going to call this million men. And then we're going to write this is over 18 what? Years. And this is what we were measuring these in. So we can always determine our units just by looking at our y variable here and our x variable here. But then what we're going to do is we're just going to get a number here. So we're going to pull out our calculator. So I'll turn this on here. We say 5.7. And we'll divide this by 18. And in this case, we notice that this is a steeper graph than the women's graph. We have 0.3167. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is approximately 0.3167-ish million men. And we're just going to say per year. And it's totally appropriate to just put this all over the 1 year. But this is what we refer to as a unit rate. So I can see that 0.3167 is greater than 0.24. And basically what we can determine is that the rate of change of the men's graph here is greater than the rate of change for the women's graph. But slope is representing a rate of change. Cheers.